In preparing for the show, I didn't read any articles, but I looked through some old quotations that I sometimes reflect on to like remind me of my business, what it is that I'm here for. And there's one from a poet. I don't remember the name, but I tweeted it just this morning. And he says that for philosophers, it's the questions that matter. And this is the line that stuck out to me. He said, they're like embers in the fire. They just sit there and they burn. And those questions can have consequences later, but it's the asking that matters. That's the valuable thing in philosophy. So they burn. Those questions sit in the back of your mind like little embers.
What questions are sitting in the back of your mind like little embers?
I wonder whether Bitcoiners have, I think about this a lot, overestimated the likelihood of hyper-Bitcoinization and the inevitability of Bitcoin, and underestimated the negative costs, those who get left behind. And if you do both of those at the same time, you can make some really deep mistakes, I think, or at least you set yourself up for certain kinds of failure, intellectual, maybe even moral failure, when you think it's inevitable that this thing will take over and you haven't really thought about who it might leave behind. So that's something that Brad, Craig, and I have thought a lot about. And Brad's kind of like the heart of our operation. He really thinks about that question, who Bitcoin might leave behind, if it is what we think it just might be. My own suspicions, my best guesses are that Bitcoin will not hyper-Bitcoinize. It will not become the dominant money. It'll become unimportant money that sits alongside others and that is a kind of eternal check against institutional overreach. I think that's the best scenario that I think is a real possibility given where we are now. Maybe that's optimistic. It can be really deeply pessimistic, actually, to think that Bitcoin can take over. If you really think about who that taking over might harm, that is the people who didn't buy early.
But you could potentially look at it a different way. It harms people who didn't buy early, but it there's a net reduction in harm in that it ultimately would raise everybody up.
So the positive externalities, the good stuff that Bitcoin creates outweighs or maybe even compensates the least well off.
I think about those questions a lot. We thought about it in the interview with Perianne. The premise of the interview was actually to do with why an ETF has not been approved.
So this is mind reading of Gary Gensler.
I mean,
a bit of that.
I think everyone has come to the same conclusion on Gensler, and it's not really mind reading; it's pretty obvious. But by the by, why has he not approved a spot ETF? And rather than just question that, Danny and I questioned before the interview, or the question we wanted to put to Perianne was, is a spot ETF good for Bitcoin, current Bitcoin holders, or everyone at large? And my fear was, especially when she talked about...
That's a good distinction.
Well, that she talked about the wall of money that would come in, trillions of potential investment. And if that's coming into the US, which already has an outsized position in Bitcoin as a collective group of people of ownership. I don't know what the split is, but I wouldn't be surprised if 40-50% of Bitcoin is all held by Americans. If that wall of money came into Bitcoin and it raised the price 10-20 fold, that would disproportionately benefit America. Would that make America an even far wealthier nation? What does that do for the little guy? And I don't know the answer. I'm not even the person to answer it, but I questioned it. And I'm not sure. Like an ETF would be amazing for me if if this wall of money came in. I personally would make a shitload of money. But what weighed on me was, actually, is this good for Bitcoin and humanity at large? And I think I'm siding on the side of I don't want a spot ETF because I'm not sure it's the best outcome for Bitcoin or people yet. I think we still need to get the little guys in.
It sounds like integrity to me, to care about something more than just NGU, number go up. We have to. If we're going to be more than the laser-eyed cultists they think we are, we have to care about more than just number go up.
Yeah, but if I only cared about number go up, I would
You'd
be involved
Bitboy crypto or something.
Yeah, I'd be involved in shitcoins. and I'm not. But that's not to say I don't want money, and I'm not attracted to money or what it provides. The opportunity that it provides for myself, my children, the nice holiday, a nice car, there's things like that. But ultimately, like, what is the mission here? Like, trying to anchor back to the mission. What is the mission? So I question that. What else? What other embers do you have going?
I think about what the mission is. And this is
Yes,
something we've talked about at Bitcoin Policy Institute.
to get rich.
That's what the cynical onlookers might guess. I think they might be surprised at how little we care or talk about price, and how much we care about things other than price, and how united we are around a mission. So I was on the phone the other day with Grant talking about this Swan-sponsored opportunity. Thanks again. And we ended on this really upbeat note, and it wasn't because I thought that some research money would be coming to me and my friends. Honestly, maybe none of it will come my way. Maybe the resistance money people will get nothing. That's okay. What was so exciting was that there was something more than just getting rich that brought me and Grant together on that call. It was a mission. It was that we thought we could make the world better. And that is so powerful as just juice to get you up in the morning and to get you on that call and to get you writing.
So what is the mission? Is the mission personal? Because Bitcoin's personal, I think. Like, if somebody asked me, what is Bitcoin?
What is Bitcoin to you?
Well, no, I said this to Stephen earlier. I start with trying to explain to them what is wrong with fiat, and then if inflation comes up, we've pointed out that inflation is a very personal problem because it affects people differently. It benefits some people. There are winners and losers, but Bitcoin to Nigerian activist is very different to a Pete McCormack in Bedford. It's very different to a Afghani female Afghani who can't get a bank account. Like, whoever you are, it's completely different. It's completely personal. So what is the mission?
I've heard you say on the show what you think the mission is. You think it's the separation of money and state. I would put it a little bit differently. I think it's an eternal check on our institutions. That's kind of a fancy way of saying it's not just the state. I think we're in this time and place where schools and churches and states and corporations and mega corporations and various unholy combinations of any of these things have tremendous power over individuals. And it's these little technologies that occasionally come up that tip the balance of power in a favor back towards the individual. So the printing press is something like that. The firearm is something like that. And I think of Bitcoin as being one of those technologies that can really shape maybe even hundreds of years of human history by protecting us from, precious, valuable, important institutions that nonetheless have great capacity to really screw us over when they get too big. Bitcoin takes something important out of all of their hands.
It breaks the concentration of power.
It does.
And
it splits it up, it disintermediates, just in the same way that firearms might have done so when they were invented.
So it's a democratizing of power.
I hesitate about democratizing because it has so much connection to things like, elections and electoral politics. But if democratizing just means putting hands into individual people, then yes, absolutely.
Because
that's the mission.
Power concentrates.
Yes, it tends to over time.
And power concentrates with money. So can power concentrate with Bitcoin if Bitcoin concentrates?
Of course it could.
Saylor could become the most powerful man in the world.
Or some unknown whale. Who's more likely. Roger Ver, for example, at one point had 400,000 Bitcoin. There are other unknown whales that may, splash around, create. They have more than Michael does. That are unnamed or unknown to most Bitcoiners.
Yeah, I like what Bitcoin does to incentives. It breaks certain incentives, but I think it does it in two ways. I think it breaks incentives with regards to the money printing press. Within Bitcoin, you've got this like check and balance on institutions, but there's a check and balance within the community.
Hmm.
Like if I 1 week have an ad read which is for Cardano, I'm fucked. Like it's the death of the show.
I think I would unfollow you. And I would ask to please have my $20 bill back, please.
I'll be like, that's £30.
I said Bitcoin is an eternal check. I should qualify that. I don't think that it's an eternal solution. I think that these things are kind of cyclical, and we need new technologies at new places and new times to fight back this inevitable concentration of power. Equilibrium outcomes tend to coalesce around concentrations of power. Not always, but this is a long tendency over human history. And so maybe someday we'll need something that none of us in this room could actually even imagine and think about, something even weirder than Bitcoin that will make the internet once again a site of freedom rather than surveillance and control. So yeah, there's this concept from Tolkien, probably my favorite author. He calls this the long defeat. The idea is that you can't defeat evil once. In fact, evil will come back. So there are these moments of triumph in Tolkien, but if you take the long view of his entire history, in fact, Morgoth is defeated, but then Sauron comes. Sauron will be defeated, but then the Nazis will rise. There's always new evils, I'm afraid. It's the long defeat.